one naira was $2, right? And we were buying things with, one kobo and two kobo. For example, my next door neighbor, growing up for since I was 2 years old, really, till I left the country as a teenager, was Ganifawa Himing, who, as we know, has a very strong history in Nigeria, fighting for democracy and fighting for civil rights of Nigerians. I grew up witnessing his interactions with the military government, including his arrest, where as a young kid we were playing outside, and they came and shot his security guard and all that story. Really true. Holidays were just magical. Everybody's, we had the Christmas carols and everybody's door was open, and all the, family children wars of, with fireworks and all, witnessing a little bit of that, happening, and how the interaction between military and democracy kind of led to some kind of devolution, I would say, in society.
You grew up in an era where 1 naira was actually $2, was equal to the. So put that into context. Today, $1 is 1,600 naira.
It was freer, right? Um, no, it was because, first of all, by the time you get to, 15, 16, then, you could drive around and, literally, now, it's too dangerous. So not much has changed. It wasn't dirty December back then. It was dirty year, and with schools closed, you know with schools closed, it was a little bit ridiculous, I would say. Thank God we are here. It says a lot. A big funny culture shock is, just going to America the first time, and going to order a McDonald's. The first thing I would say about Howard University, I just felt love, right? From, so many of the students. What I faced from the African American community was just, amazing. In Nigeria, right, because of our ecosystem and because of how difficult things are, sometimes, and how scattered things can be, you literally almost have to be an activist as a business person, because when you're building your business, you kind of have to be an activist, building and making sure that your ecosystem survives, and everybody, you socialize it, and everybody, understands it and does the right thing for that ecosystem to survive. And that's why today a lot of people know that your number one ingredient for success is grit.
The foundation for everyone is grit, is courage, is knowing, is you essentially becoming a freedom fighter, right? That's the
It
foundation.
wasn't a 9 to 5 commitment. It was a get the job done commitment. It was really just working hard, and going from opportunity to opportunity. Attitude determines your altitude. If there's one thing I want people to take away from, even the Verify Me story, is that success begins when you're making the right decisions, right? Not when you see the alert from your decisions, right? I've gone to work at midnight every Wednesday for a 2 year, 3 year period, because that's when we will take the ATM network down. And sometimes I won't come home for 24 hours. I remember I had my first daughter, my firstborn, and 15 minutes after, and just because of how things were set up, I was on my laptop approving stuff in the maternity room. People always say your brand is what people say about you when you're not around, right? For the most part. And the way you get good things for the most part is acting with integrity. I was waking up at 2 a.m. every day in the US, and to wake up the Nigeria team at 6 in the morning, right? Grit, courage, and consistency are generally always rewarded, right? As long as you're doing it from a place of passion and integrity, the universe is going to conspire, for that goal for you, right? Make sure you have a good tribe. Have a tribe. You need a tribe, right? It's just everything is about passion, and be an activist for yourself. That's the most thing. When you're an activist for yourself, then you're an activist for your environment and your ecosystem, and have passion and grit. That's really all that matters.